Wow, good morning from Christchurch, New Zealand. It's pretty beautiful here. Holy moly. Wow.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Lido, Loca. I am your host, Tony, and I just want to talk you through some of the things that you're seeing on the screen right now. This is footage from the MS Noordam, a Holland America ship that I cruised on in January of 2023, and we were docked. We were docked in Christchurch. Littleton, I think, is the port, but it's the port that takes you to Christchurch there in New Zealand. And we weren't supposed to be in Christchurch. We weren't supposed to be there. The whole trip that we had to New Zealand was rocked by challenging weather. And one of the biggest factors was a bomb cyclone that was churning in the sea in the northern part of New Zealand. We were supposed to go to Aukland that day. We were supposed to go to Hobbiton, which is a very famous spot for Lord of the Rings fans. Looks like a movie set there, like you could actually go to Bilbo Baggins' Hobbit hole. But that was the plan, but that was not what happened because of the bomb cyclone. Instead, we found ourselves in Christchurch, and the shore excursion team there at Holland America Line suggested to us that we go on this excursion called Journey to Middle Earth. And, look, that we wanted some sort of Lord of the Rings tie-in, and we were certainly going to get it with an excursion called Journey to Middle Earth. But as you read through the excursion, it became pretty clear that you weren't going to see any film sets. But the Shorex team still was like, it's a great excursion. You definitely, if you're a Lord of the Rings fan, you should go on it. And so, yeah, the footage that I'm sharing here is us exiting the cruise ship. That lady that you saw at the beginning, she was on a tear. She had to get to the bus first. I don't know what the rush was, but yeah. So I'm gonna take you through it. We drive through Christchurch and then we go out into the New Zealand Alps. And yeah, let's start with a little bit of a conversation about Christchurch. Let me just start off by saying the tour guide that we had for this tour was exceptional. She was a native of Christchurch, and as the day went on, we really started to understand what that meant, the fact that she was a native child of Christchurch. But Christchurch, of course, it's located on New Zealand's South Island. It's the country's third largest city, and it's known as the Garden City for its green spaces. It's a major center there in New Zealand for culture, arts, and education. And of course, sadly, on February the 22nd, 2011, Christchurch was rocked by a magnitude 6.3 earthquake, causing widespread destruction and over 180 fatalities. The quake centered near the city caused extensive damage to buildings and infrastructure. And then since then, Christchurch has undergone a significant rebuilding effort, transforming the city's landscape with modern architecture and an innovative urban design. It really does remain a symbol of resilience and recovery in the face of disaster. And I'm going to share a little bit of the tour with you in her words, just so you get a sense of what was going on there. But yeah, we rolled through Christchurch and you saw partially destroyed buildings. You saw fields where there used to be buildings, and then you saw new construction. And a new way, like all the buildings there, not very tall, because one of the lessons learned from them after that earthquake was not to build very high. I think they build wide instead of high now. But yeah, I'll let the tour guide speak to us for a little bit, and then after we go through Christchurch, we hit the road for what seemed like forever to get to the New Zealand Alps.
The pointy-looking building that you're looking at, that's why we're coming this way. This is colloquially known as the Cardboard Cathedral. This is our transitional cathedral that was put together by the Anglicans after the main cathedral fell down. Site on the left, just quickly, that's where those 115 people died. But this is called the Cardboard Cathedral. Have a look at the cardboard tubes that are holding the roof up. Cardboard tubes with a plastic cover for a roof. It was designed by a Japanese architect as a temporary building. It's supposed to have a lifespan of approximately 50 years, which should give them time to actually get the main cathedral rebuilt. This is Latimer Square. This is one of the squares set out in that early maps I was telling you about. So there was always public space included in Christchurch. So all of these places, empty places, had buildings on them. mini golf if anybody fancies that. One memorial. That is actually genuine steel beams from one of the Twin Towers buildings. And that was gifted to New Zealand firefighters as thanks for the effort that they put in helping in that disaster. Of course, we got the reciprocal arrangement and people came rushing here to help us in our time of need too. We had urban search and rescue teams, specialist rescue teams from all over the world, and they actually set up and were camped there in Latimer Square for nights. Building code changed a lot after the earthquakes, and anything built has to, you have to have geotech approval. And the geotechs will tell you what type of foundations are required for the type of building that you want to do. And some of the foundation work is really elaborate. But generally, Christchurch buildings are made to bend and flex and move with the earth without breaking. And even, you know, at the last resort is the building will be damaged, but the people inside will survive. So that's the ultimate goal. But they'd prefer it if the building didn't need much repair either. Some cafes, events. On the left, the museum. The museum's about to close for a complete refurbishment. It's going to take years. And here is Christ's College, which was based on a British type school like Eton or something. Cost a lot of money to send your sons to school here. Look at the green in the middle and all of the, you know, it's just so English, it's not funny. On the right is their rebuilt boarding houses. And then North Hagley Park here, where they're obviously setting up for a concert. Oh, it's a play, is it? The Complete History of Kiwi Cricket. Oh, right,
So yeah, that trip through Christchurch was super interesting, learning about the history. And it's wild when you go to these cities that have suffered some sort of disaster or some sort of trauma, the lingering effects of that trauma on the people that experienced it. It was the same thing when I went to Dover in the UK. Our tour guide there had memories of family members who were there during the bombings that happened in Dover. So it's a wonderful ride through Christchurch. And then we made our way toward the New Zealand Alps, which required us to drive a couple hours into the country. And what was really distinctive about this drive is, and really all of New Zealand, is the way that the landscape looks. And so you don't see a lot of fences, but you do see hedges and paddocks holding animals, and it's just a beautiful rolling countryside that I didn't expect when I first went there. I was unfamiliar with what the geography would be like, and it was beautiful. It was very beautiful. So I think we left the cruise ship at like 7:30 or 8 a.m. and we didn't actually make our first stop on this excursion until 10:30. And we stopped at this war memorial building for morning tea or a morning snack. And this would be the same building that we would go to later in the day for lunch. But let me kick it back over to the tour guide, and you can kind of get a sense of what we were dealing with at that moment.
But please use the toilet before we go, because there won't be any more comfortable toilets until we come back here for lunch. So that white building the bus is pointing at right now, toilets in there as well. Okay? So we're here just on past. So well done, everyone. So if we could be ready to go about 11, it'd be marvellous. So you head in there and get a lovely muffin. I have to go and get one for your cruise director fella. He asked me to bring one back for him. So.
What's up, Simon? Morning.
Toilets on your left.
Oh, thank you.
This works.
Yeah. What do you think so far?
A lot of hedges.
Those hedges are neat. I've never. Do they have that in Canada where they grow trees into hedges?
Not that to that extent.
Pretty elaborate. Yeah, I was like, wow, that's pretty neat. So we're kind of in like in the States we would call it a VFW hall. So it's like a veterans hall. They're hosting us for morning tea, which there's tea and coffee and pastries, and we're getting this like we're in a mountain town. So we're getting. I don't want to jinx it, but this is like the first day I've been out and about, and it's just not been wet. Yeah. Made it back.
Made it back?
Sorry. Oh.
Sun's coming out. I told you the weather had changed as we came through here. So Tolkien was knighted for his services to literature. But he wasn't just a writer, he was so much more than that, with his interests in history and mountains and languages and all those other things. And actually you can see that in his books. He was a greenie conservationist before that was popular. I mean, you just have to look at how so many times in the books he's against the forest being felled and all of that sort of stuff happening. So anyway, I think he's a rather remarkable man, and if we didn't have him, we wouldn't have the movies.
So after we finished our morning snack, we continued to drive higher in elevation into the New Zealand Alps. The terrain changed from flat and rolling to mountainous with snow-capped mountains, and the tour guide started to describe to us the life and times of J.R.R. Tolkien, of course, the author of The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, and really, obviously the creator of Middle-earth. And we got closer and closer to our first stop, which was not part of the journey to Middle. I mean, it was part of the journey to Middle-earth, the excursion, but the site that we stopped at wasn't a filming location or anything, but just a beautiful vista there in the New Zealand Alps. It was pretty interesting. It's like a little resort area with all these tiny homes, and again, you really just start to understand the beauty that you're going to be taking in over the next hour. But we did get off the bus, so let me share the stop with you.
Certainly is something to see. Bit of blue skies and
Blue
sunshine.
skies. It's the first excursion we haven't been drenched.
Yeah, it's very
which is
nice. Wow, I don't know. I've seen some pretty places, but I don't have any coming to mind right now.
And the mountains as well? Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, don't worry about us so much.
Holy moly. Wow. Wow.
Some pretty pictures.
Yeah, it's beautiful out there, eh?
Yeah.
Really, it's really amazing, actually.
If you get a little bit of blue sky
I know. No.
for some photos.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
We're heading further up the road. Bear in mind again the cast and crew travelling up here in the dark to get here in time for wardrobe and whatnot before filming. Every day they were filming. And the first time they come up here they have no idea where they're going, obviously, being driven up. So it must have been a bit of an experience for them. I'll tell you a bit more about building the place. So we are going to see the site of Edoras. There is nothing there anymore. What we have is a small mountain known as Mount Sunday. Mount Sunday is on Mount Potts Station. It is called Mount Sunday because there are 3 big high country stations. Mount Potts itself. Further up the road, past where we're going, is a station called Erewhon. If you squint and read that backwards, it is nowhere spelt backwards. And on the other side of the river is a huge area, Mesopotamia station. Now on Sunday was the hams' day off, the cowboys or whatever you want to call them, the farm workers. And so after they had done their chores, fed the horses, fed the dogs, whatever else they had to do, then they had the rest of the day off. And Mount Sunday, this little lump of hill, was sort of nearly pretty much equidistant to all the stations. And the farm workers would congregate at Mount Sunday, probably not to have a church service, but to share a bevy or two and get together. So that is why the little hill is known as Mount Sunday.
So we carried further on up the road, and then we stopped for a third time, and then this is where we finally got to see Edoras, the capital city for the riders of Rohan.
Thank you. Okay, the other thing we can see from here is something that doesn't actually exist.
So yeah, that's our first look at Edoras, which it was wild, dude, looking at the picture and looking at the mountain and drawing the connection. But we would get to go closer, so yeah, we're not done yet. Back on the bus we go, and we've got one more stop right at Mount Sunday.
He was in a glider plane. So they built this up there. So where that trig station is, where you can actually see a person standing, that is where they built this, the big golden hall. So everything was built facing that way, so from the centre of the peak forward. And also up the back from here, they built a road. There was a road running up that spur right to the top of the mountain to take all their gear up. They had bridges, proper road bridges, proper road, and they've taken it all the way. So this is what they built. That's what it looked like in the movies. The other thing about it though is they only complete those buildings from the side you can see from the camera. The only one that actually had 4 complete walls as well as a complete roof.
Right, so this is it's pretty amazing. So we just traveled 3.5 hours south of Christchurch to this. We've climbed up into the mountains to this area. And this little mountain here is called Sunday Mountain. And it was featured in the second film of the Lord of the Rings trilogy for 11 minutes. It took them 8 months to build the sets here, countless days, 21 days I believe it was, to film for 11 minutes. And it's really gives you a great appreciation for what goes into movie making. But yeah, it's just majestic. The fact that instead of using a CGI to duplicate this, they came out into this majestic, wonderful nature to do this. So it's a little breathtaking to behold, honestly. I mean, it's cool from a nerd perspective that the Lord of the Rings was filmed here, but just from a life perspective, it's very cool to see something so majestic. It's almost hard to describe how amazing it is.
Man, it really was beautiful there. I don't know how long we had, maybe 30 minutes. And I feel like we were even kind of ushered back on the bus quicker than that. But you can take full tours out there and actually climb Mount Sunday to see, you know, the very top of where that set was built and all of that. But just a beautiful, majestic place. The video doesn't do it justice. And we start to retrace our steps back through the countryside, and we arrive back at the War Memorial for lunch. So after lunch, it was back on the bus, back through the countryside, back through Christchurch, and then back to the cruise ship. This excursion was billed as a Lord of the Rings fan excursion, the journey to Middle Earth. And it was that. It was that. You did see a filming location from the epic Lord of the Rings trilogy, but it wasn't like going to Hobbiton where you would actually be immersed in that movie set. And we knew that from the onset. But this turned out to be just a really, it was like, you know, Bilbo's journey. It was a long journey. I think this excursion was about 8 hours. And it just wasn't what we expected. It wasn't what I expected. But, you know, I felt fortunate to be there. It was really cool to go to the New Zealand Alps and see such beauty, and to stop at that war memorial and interact with people in that small town and see the paddocks and the fields and the animals. You know, I almost feel like it would have been better if this excursion would have been called Journey to the New Zealand Alps, and you're going to see some Lord of the Rings stuff. But either way, I feel even more today blessed for the opportunity to travel with my friend Don, the opportunity to be in New Zealand, the opportunity to see something new. It's been 2 years since that day in Christchurch. This is January of 2025, and it's wild looking back on that day 2 years ago. I was sick. My thyroid was broken, and you can see it in my eyes, and you can see it in my neck, and you can hear it in my breathing. And yeah, it's funny how time colors things. I was happy that day in the moment. I was taking in this beautiful spot. And even though it was a long day and not necessarily what we expected, it was great. It was great. And I was very happy to be there, and I'm very happy to share it with you. And I'm very happy that I'm here today, continuing to share these adventures. Thank you so much for checking this one out. I hope you enjoyed it. Please hit the like button. This is Tony for Lido Loca. Subscribe for more. And until the next time, we'll see you on the Lido. Bye.